cold draft coming in through a crack in the window. The cold chill went through her like knives. The young princess shook and simply grabbed a cloth from her dresser drawer of oak and quickly ran to put the handkerchief into the little crack. The cold draft soon stopped coming into the cold room, and soon over time, the cold room of stone and wood soon then turned cozy and safe with the fire that burned so brightly. The fire made the young princess feel so safe. Her room was her own sanctum, and there was no place that she felt more at home. Alexa drifted back to her window, where she sat and gazed upon the stars. The glaring lights she believed were angels. Alexa laughed and could only clap her little hands in delight. The young princess jumped down with joy and twirled all around her room. Alexa grabbed one of her dolls and danced with it. The little doll's smile was so serene and silent. A sweet, embracing smile, such fitting for a tiny doll. Alexa danced and danced until she could no longer dance anymore. Soon, the young princess grew tired, falls upon the floor of oak wood, and gazed at the ceiling. Alexa hugged her little doll and sat up, dusting her dress of black and green. Upon the green was set floral patterns of flowers, while the black covered to her neck, then to her sleeves, embedded on the silky black textures where her chest was a tiny pink flower. Alexa looked up at the grandfather clock and fell back once more, putting her little feet on the dashboard of the carved oak. The young princess watched the pendulum of the clock sway back and forth, making ticking sounds. Alexa joined in, making her eyes sway back and forth, following the clock, and clicking her tongue to mimic the sounds the clock made. Time passed, and Alexa's mother called upon Alexa herself. Alexa's mother's voice carried throughout the castle walls, and Alexa quickly scurried up and heeded to her mother's call. Alexa ran out the door, excited to see her mother back from her trip to England. The young princess jumped up and down in excitement, awaiting the untold wonders her mother had brought to share with her. The queen only smiled sweetly at Alexa. Her beautiful curly blonde hair was tied up into a bun, and her dress of green and black matched that of the young princess's, but only slightly different, as it was more poofy at the sleeves to the bottom itself. The queen's long tail from the bottom of her dress dragged behind her, leaving glitter that soon melted in her wake. Alexa laughed and giggled. The young princess waited for her mother to settle back down, as soon as the queen's servants placed all her belongings back. The queen sat down on her chair of willow wood and gold-edged carvings embedded in it, and looked out the window only to feel the presence of her young daughter. Alexa pushed herself onto her lap and sit with her as both watched the snow fall from their perching window. Alexa felt her mother's hand pet her hair, but never did the queen gaze upon Alexa eye to eye. The air was distilled and quiet. The halls echoed with the sounds of the creaking old castle, leaving moans and groans behind from the howling wind. Alexa gazed at her mother and could no longer hold her excitement. As she smiled ever so sweetly, her young cooing voice barely touched the ear of her wavering mother's ear, the only one single word to gain the queen's attention. "Mama?" The queen gazed at Alexa and kept her eyes hidden behind a black veil, only to pat Alexa's little blushing cheek. Alexa gasped, feeling her mother's cold hands. The young princess whimpered and felt something changing within her mother, but maybe the passing of time had only made that feeling of a ominous production with the reflections in her head. Alexa paid no observance to it, only to feel the slight acquaintance that was her mother. The young heiress sighed and slowly moved her gaze down, then back up to her mother's gaze one more time. Alexa once again tugged on the queen's sleeve to gain her utmost attention. The queen gazed once more at Alexa and tilted her head, questioning what her young daughter could possibly want from her. Alexa gulped and gathered enough courage to ask her mother about her favorite pastime tale, with a slight quiver within her young sweet voice.
Mama, can you tell me the story again?
Alexa questioned, only to leave her mother giggling and soon laughing to herself. The queen smiled and nodded in agreement to the child's plain requests. Alexa patted the floor and sat down comfortable, waiting to hear her mother's tale. The queen sat upon her chair and inhaled deeply, taking in the cold air, and then started to tell her story to the young princess. Long ago, when man was young and the dragon already old, people lived in peace, for they were bathed in the warmth of light. Everyone loved the light of our divine protectors. But soon, people began to fight over it. They wanted the light for themselves, and darkness was born in man's heart. The darkness spread, swallowing the light, and many hearts of the people. It covered everything, and the world disappeared. And for our protectors, the blessing turned into a curse. The queen shouted with a startle of thunder and shock that made Alexa jump, but only the sounds of Alexa's mother's giggle could be heard as she passed Alexa's back.
Mama, that wasn't funny. That story is too scary,
Alexa proclaimed, still in shock, and was rather mad at her mother for her small prank. I didn't mean to scare you, my sweet cherry blossom. Since I saw you so down, I tried to cheer that sad little face of yours, her mother said gently, as she pulled on Alexa's cute rosy cheeks. Alexa just took a deep breath and started laughing as well.
Mom, was that silly story true?
Alexa's mother made an expression of humor and laughed. No, sweetie, of course not. She laughed once more. It was meant to scare you. My mother told me the same thing when I was your age. I never believed in it. Remember, it is all a fairy tale. They are not real, Alexa. Alexa remained in deep surprise, and soon was shooed off by her mother. The young princess noticed a slight change in her mother. Never had the queen ever tried to scare any of her children, and Alexa was baffled. The young heiress wondered where her father was and how he was doing. She deeply took in the idea that maybe he was still on business and left her mother to go home and take care of the children. Alexa and her older brother, Alexander. The ticking of the old grandfather clock echoed. The sound left a chilling reminder of the story that the queen had told her young daughter. Alexa returned to her chambers only to find her brother of 11 years of age going through Alexa's things. Alexander was a cheerful boy with an incredible sense of justice. Though the young prince had his antics with Alexa, and it made her boiling mad throughout the cold, long winters ahead. Alexa saw her older brother playing with knights and dragons with her dolls, especially with one of the dolls she most held dear. Such a doll with a sweet smile upon its little clown face. Alexander took note of his younger sister and stared at the striped black and white doll, throwing it aside, shrugging at it as he laughed to himself. Creepy monochrome dolls are not my thing. Alexa frowned and looked at her brother watching his cape hung over his shoulder, swaying back and forth as it disappeared along with him. The young princess picked up her doll and threw it aside and quickly changed into her nightgown. The nightfall of snow gently fell endlessly, leaving the entire kingdom in awe of the power that blanketed the meadows and houses of the people below. Alexa soon drifted off into a deep slumber, her sweet dreams. The following morning, Alexa and her brother strolled down the city streets with their mother. The children laughed and jumped up and down with excitement. This was a day for the Festival of Fools, and everyone was dressed for the occasion. There were jugglers, fire eaters, and oddities of different natures all gathered in one place where performers of all over would come to entertain the people in their mischievous antics. Alexa looked around and laughed in excitement. The young princess pulled her mother from place to place, showing all there was to see. Her mother didn't pay any mind, as if she was looking around, searching for something that intrigued her more than the festival itself. The queen soon stopped and smiled at both of her children. Alexa stared at her mother. The queen's gaze fell upon a single old, tattered bright blue and purple circus tent. The banners had smiles and colorful blue and purple streamers swaying back and forth in the breeze. The queen gently pushed her children towards the opening of the tent and only smiled at both of her children. Alexa stared at her mother and felt a slight discomfort coming from the tent itself. But if her mother said it was okay, then surely it was okay to enter. Alexander gripped his sister's hand harder, and both children entered the tent. Inside there were mirrors reflecting the children's images back and forth in some prism of colors. Their images reflected off the mirrors and projected upon the walls. The lanterns creaked back and forth, with their dimly glowing lights threatening to go out at any second. Alexander felt a slight chill go up his spine. A single breath of air brushed against his neck, making his hair stand up on their ends. The children both shook, wanting out, but both with a desire to keep going, wondering what could possibly be at the end of the maze of reflections and illusions. Alexa wandered with her brother and soon hit the ending opening of the mirror maze, and at the end of the tunnel, on a stage, a present of beautiful purple and blue wrapping paper sat. The present had upon its top a bow of silver and gold. The children laughed with glee and ran towards the box, and both smiled at each other. Excitement swelled up within the children, and both in sync grabbed the ends of the ribbon. Alexander took hold of the gold end, and Alexa on the silver end. The children pulled and unraveled the ribbon of silver and gold. The present's lid opened, and out confetti of many colors busted out. The smoke of pink and blue intertwined with each other. On the corner of the room, an old dusty piano remained dormant. Instantly, the old rusted room transformed. The smoke of pink and blue was filled with glittering stars, almost as if it was magic itself. The old place began to come alive once again. The candles lit up an array of colors, and the old piano started to play on its own. A cheery yet catchy tune came out of the old pipes of the old organ. Two voices are heard, echoing from the distance. Alexa hugged her brother tightly, and Alexander did the same. The children shook in fright, not knowing what they had done. The smoke fused into one color of purple, then detached from each other, soon settling down to the ground as pink and blue. The smoke swirled and twisted into shapes, forms, and bursted downwards, leaving two magic boxes in its wake. The boxes creaked open, and one frail hand was shown coming out of the pink box. As soon, another, broader hand of a male was shown emerging from the blue box. The children backed away, and then gazed and gasped as a gust of wind blew the box doors open as two beings jumped out and twirled. The beings laughed and jumped on a ball that they magically made, and both stood on the tip of the top of the ball, balancing themselves. The twin jesters' backs were facing each other, back to back, both holding each other's hand from behind as they stared at the children. The female jester gazed at the children. Her deep magenta eyes glowed in the dark, as did the bangles on her wrists, ankles, and hair. Her hair was in a twin aquamarine pigtails that had gold bells at the end that stuck out like spikes of a porcupine from the top to bottom. All the while, her jester skirt swayed in the breeze. The skirt was all black but carried a pink polka dot pattern upon it, as her top was all black with pink stripe that went up and down from left to right. The pink neck strap upon her neck glowed as well as her brother's neon aqua one. The brother too adorned bracelet in his hair that looked like a jester's hat. The male's hair was in 3 ponytails. The ponytail was a deep neon blue color that glowed in the dark along with the rest of his clothes. His tight clothes looked as if they were his skin as well. The male jester wore a tight long-sleeved turtleneck which cut off at his shoulders, which then soon followed with a tight purple long sleeve that ended with his gloved hand. Upon his lower torso, he had 2 twin belts that hung down. At the ends, they were attached as 2 silver bells. The male jester smirked at the children as Bella Pan shook and vibrated as he jumped off the ball. The twin jesters walked towards both children and danced around them, performing tricks and magic for their everlasting delight. The bells upon the twins' elf shoes jingled, making delightful sounds everywhere they went. Alexa laughed and giggled. Alexander clapped his hands in delight. The jesters bowed, and both talked in rhythm and rhyme. We serve the Queen on high, our loyalty unquestioned, and unquestioned is our loyalty, and until that day comes, we'll simply bide our time, join in a spiral cord, connected forever and eternally and forever connected, our fates intertwine. Our coincidence. Both twins smiled and grinned as their smiles both touched their circled purple-colored cheeks, and kneeled to the little prince and princess, both remaining silent. Alexa hugged her brother and gazed upon the multicolored jesters as they both laughed and giggled at the children. Alexa could only whimper and shake, staring at the jesters, and asked, "Who are you?" The male jester simply smiled widely, his cat-like eyes glowing a deep purple. His eyes gazed down and simply spoke in a goofy tone. Both the Gemini twins laughed and spoke both at once. "Were we one, now two? Twins or 2 halves? Or is it the same? The same is it? One of 2 or not? Memories of old echo of an older time." The twin jesters both laughed and glared at the children, and the blue jester squished his hands together, revealing a flower for Alexa as he offers it to her, as his sister offers a toy soldier to the brother. The children soon stopped frowning. Their frowns turned into sweet smiles. Alexander took the toy, pulled on the string of the soldier, and put on the ground, watching it walk, as Alexa slowly took the flower from the blue jester and remained silent. Her quiet disposition rendered the blue jester in awe. He could only grin and watch as his sister smiled, seeing the children pleased with their gifts. Alexander gazed upon the jesters and smiled at both of them, laughing and clapping his hands as they performed tricks for them, and them only. Oh boy, this is simply wonderful! Please tell us your names! Alexander cheerfully replied. The jesters both laughed and spun around the children and giggled, offering them treats, to their taste buds' delight, as they jumped upon a chimpanzee and swung high into the air. The blue male jester landed perfectly first and caught his sister, the pink jester, and both spread their arms as confetti exploded from the piazza above. 2 banners in silver and gold fell down and revealed their names of the jesters. The young prince laughed and gasped in great delight, about to yell their names out. His mouth is covered by the pink jester's gloved hand. Hush and shush, shush and hush, the pink jester replied. Alexander was about to open it, but then stopped by the blue jester and slowly looked up at him and blinked slowly. The blue jester gave instructions on how to use the box and how to see its entire splendor and the wonders that was held within it. We have been trapped here for so long. We are tired of being here, trapped. We cannot leave our internal prison, but you two can help us. We're your friends. If you help us, we will be at your beck and call. The blue jester could only smile at the children and pet their sweet little faces. Alexander saw their sad faces and could only grieve for both of them, as he nodded and smiled so cheerfully, never missing a beat, only to reply in great harmony to the jesters, "Okay, I will help you. No, me and my sister, we will both help you." Alexander grabbed his sister and smiled at both of the twin jesters. Alexa gasped and nodded no and whimpered as she sighed and could not help it. She nodded in agreement and remained as silent as she ever was. The blue jester kneeled, patted the music box, laughed so cheerfully, gazed into Alexander's eyes, and told him the rules on how to use the box. You both are so kind to help us. To use this box, only the pure of heart may call us. Once you do, we will play with you forever and finally be free of the old curse that binds us here. All you have to do is say this little rhyme. You must say it right and remember it. If you do not, we will stay here forever and never again see the light of day. We will never be able to come and play with you both. We want someone to be our friends, so please, summon us. Please be our friends? The blue jester smiled, so did his sister. Both of the jesters hugged each other and pet the children's faces, not until disappearing without leaving 2 cards behind. One card was blue and the other pink, and both had pictures of 2 different types of candy, hinting to the names of the jesters as their voices both whispered, echoing, leaving a chilling message. And remember to share. The voices left Alexa shaken and whimpering as she stared at the box. Alexander picked both of the cards up and put them in his pocket. Alexa, being as curious as she was, wanted to see the box, but only could feel her brother slap her little hand away as she frowned and whimpered. Alexander stared at Alexa and nodded no. This is not for you. You might break it, and besides, why would I let a baby like you use it? Alexa frowned and jumped up and down, trying to get the music box, only to be shoved away by her brother as she frowned and looked at him. Fine! Keep your silly music box. I don't want it anyway. Alexa crossed her arms and remained silent, but still, she could not hope to shake away the feeling of curiosity. of what could happen if she did open the box. Days passed since the pastime at the festival, and throughout the nights, Alexa could hear laughing coming from her brother's room. Alexa heard her brother all throughout the night, but still the child's curiosity grew even more. Was the silly little music box that the two jesters gave him really that fun? How could it? Alexa had to find out. However, since the day of the festival, her brother Alexander started to get distant. He was always locked up in his room, always in isolation, but the laughing never ceased. Alexa began to grow more and more worried of her brother. One cold, dark night, Alexa finally mounted enough courage to go to her brother's room. The young princess quickly slipped on her slippers and grabbed a lantern, lighting it in the process. Alexa slowly opened her door and tiptoed to the end of the hallway, where her brother remained inside isolation. The doorknob to Alexander's room slowly turned clockwise as a door of heavy oak slowly cracked open. Alexa looked inside, seeing if her brother was inside. Slowly, Alexa walked into the room and whimpered. Alexa looked around the room and saw her brother's things on the floor. The lights flashed on and off in her brother's room, and from behind her, the lights revealed the faint smear of blood could be seen on the walls. Alexa took no mind to it. She never turned around to gaze at what was on the walls behind her. The young princess looked around at the dark room and soon discovering the music box in the very corner of the room. Quickly, Alexa knelt down, placing her lantern to the side of her and grabbing the music box her brother held so dear. Alexa gazed upon the music box and soon after saw that the music box was locked. Looking around, Alexa found a shiny key on the floor with the distinct marks engraved upon the key, swirls and gem embedded on the key. Alexa looked at the lock upon the music box and inserted the key inside the lock and slowly turned it. The music box opened instantly, and soon two little jester figures stood up on a pedestal, and both looked as if they were dancing. Alexa slowly turned the key that was behind the music box. The little chimes that came from the music box itself sounded distorted. The music box began to slowly play a sweet, haunting tune. Alexa knew this tune well. The tune was one her mother would sing to her every night when she would tuck her into sleep. The young princess soon followed along, singing slowly and softly in the night as the music played slowly. The music soon stopped. Alexa stared at the music box, whimpered, put the box down as she looked down, and picked up her lantern as she turned around, and upon her the corpse of her brother lying against the ceiling. His body twisted and mangled, sticking to the ceiling. Alexa screamed and saw the body of her brother burst into flames. Alexa panted and backed away as quickly she leaves the music box behind. The hallways quickly filled with smoke, and Alexa screamed for her mother and cried hard. Her tears flowed so heavily down her cheeks as she panted heavily and whimpers. Running frantically into her mother's room and looked around, seeing the fireplace lit up lightly. The light from the fire lit the room all over in a haunting warm glow. And Alexa quickly went to her mother, grabbed her hand, and shook her uncontrollably. Alexa's screams and cries carried throughout the hallways as she tried to gain her mother's attention. Mama, Mama, please, Mama, wake up! There is fire and blood. Something's wrong, Alexander, Mama, please, please, Alexa soon was cut off by the sound of her mother's light laughter. But soon it stopped abruptly as the queen stood up and slowly turned around. The queen's head turned slightly, and staring at Alexa, her eyes gleamed slight light purple. Alexa panted and nodded no. The young princess backed away, bumping into something big behind her. Alexa shook and turned around, seeing her father as she gasped and hugged him deeply, thinking that he finally returned home from his trip. The king hugged Alexa tightly and pet Alexa's head slowly, patting her little back and gripping her hard. Alexa panted and cried hard, screaming what had happened to her brother, explaining that they had to leave now before something else happened. The king chuckled and comforted his young daughter. There, my little sweet puff. There's nothing wrong. Yes, nothing wrong. The king begins to grip Alexa hard, and Alexa's screams are being heard. The young princess slaps her father as hard as she can and pushes him away with her little hands and backs away from her father. Upon seeing her father, he gets up, grinning. Alexa backs away and gapes at her father. The king cracked his head and opened his arms and smiled, only ever so sweetly. Are you not going to give your daddy a hug, sweetie pie? Alexa nodded no, knowing that these were not her parents. The princess ran out of the door, screaming, crying, hoping that anyone could hear her cries. Laughter echoed throughout the hallways. Alexa's heart pounded and pounded harder. She panicked and cried, hoping to find somewhere to hide. Alexa tried every door and eventually found a closet to hide in. As soon as she hid, the smell of decay could be smelled. Alexa looked behind her slowly, and hiding in the grand closet, the bodies of her parents already reeking of weeks of decay. Alexa shuddered and backed away. Quickly, Alexa ran out of the closet and felt something grab her from behind and cover her mouth quickly as she pants. The young girl soon hears a hushed whisper into her ear and shivers as her tears flow heavily down her cheeks. A slimy feeling crept up her neck as she pants and screeches in disgust as she cries even harder and is pinned down to the ground. Alexa pleaded and cried for help, for someone to come, but to no avail. Please, please, let me go. Who are you? Who? Alexa's voice is cut off by a gloved hand as she shakes her eyes, trembled to the mere sight of the whispers that were coming from behind her. The male voice carried such bloodlust in it that it made young Alexa scream. The voice hinted the grand murderous schemes that this man committed. Another voice, a female, giggled throughout the hallway. Her laughter echoed and coiled one with the wind. Alexa shut her eyes, nodding no, deeply wanting out. But there was no way out. No way back. Time had ceased for her, and the young princess knew this was it. The final end to her story. The male gripped Alexa harder, clawing at her skin, ripping her dress, as he's grinning so balefully, showing the serrating teeth that alike to razor-sharp knives that would soon bite into his next victim. The female grabbed Alexa's lantern and relit it, showing their faces to her. She nodded no, thinking that the twin jesters were her friends. But she was wrong. Alexa was wrong about everything. She knew at that moment, in the tent, something was wrong. Something was off by her so-called friends. Alexa panted and whimpered as she stared at the pink jester covered in the blood of her own brother. The laughter she heard from his room, she heard days ago, was his madness overtaking him. Alexander had laughed himself to death from the antics of these twisted, shattered Geminis. Both the jesters were now joined in a spiral cord. Once one, now deep in front of Alexa's very eyes, were now two. Two manifestations that both played and slaughtered in a joyful unison. Alexa could not accept it. The young princess glared at the female pink jester of adorning neon colors. Alexa quickly saw her monochrome doll of black and white stripes laying on the floor from her brother throwing it aside weeks ago. Alexa grabbed the doll by its distinctive cone-shaped nose. She uses it to stab the male jester holding her in his grip in the eye, and quickly drops the doll. The doll, with its never-ending smiles, almost as if it knew. The male and female jesters screeched in pain and both hiss and shriek in deep anger. Both turned into pink and blue mist-like forms from before and combined into one purplish gas of glitter and confetti. The gloves rip apart from the combined jesters' hands as they develop into claws. The face ripped open from both sides, showing its sharp, razoring teeth dripping with flesh and blood from Alexander. The hellbound fool soon charged at Alexa. Alexa ran and screamed, running towards the fire that burned so brightly, the same glow that she found so comforting in her room within her own fireplace. Quickly, Alexa ran into her brother's burning room and looked for the music box that held the twin jesters now combined into some hell-bound creature. Alexa panted and searched frantically, screaming and yelling. Where is it? Where is it? Alexa could not think straight. Her heart pounded as she heard a cracking of the wood and the fall of the first tower from the castle. The fire has already reached the pinnacle peak of the base of the tower, both below and in the ceiling itself. Embers of wood crackled and spread from the grand hallways to Alexa's parents' bedroom. She quickly turns around and sees the neonic hellbound clawing at the walls, and then climbing on the ceiling like some spider searching for its prey. Alexa screamed, making the Gemini catch her attention towards her. The unharassed backed away and screamed, seeing the beast open its gaping mouth and wrapping its long tongue around her left leg. Alexa screamed and cried in utmost horror. She quickly looked around and grabbed a burning plank of wood and threw it at the beast's eye. The few-shattered jester screeched and backed away, banging his head on the floor. The Gemini began to glitch repeatedly, and within that instant split back into the twins. Both twins laughed at once, and the jester of neon blue soon got back up. He swayed back and forth and got up quickly, seeing his sister grinning, just staring at him and nodding silently. The berry blue jester gasps and slowly turns his head towards Alexa and stares at her as he slaps the falling wood away from him. Alexa is then picked up by the end of her collar and rolls through the burning flames, screaming and begging to be released. Please, please stop! Alexa kicked and screamed. The vile Kobak fool would have none of it, and slammed Alexa to the ground, grinning, manifesting a hammer of many colors. Alexa felt the Ezra fool's elf-like boot push against her ribs, breaking some in the process. The temperature grew higher, and the flames more violent with each passing minute. Alexa heard the grandfather clock ticking back and forth, going backwards. Time was running out, and Alexa screamed upon seeing the giant mallet's frontal face engraved with a smiley face sent down upon her. Alexa gasped and grabbed burning ash and throws it into the jester's face, making him screech an unholy screech. The windows break, and the ground shakes heavily with one blow. The fire ceases, and the snow breaks into where the broken windows once were. Alexa backed away and scooted, staring at the irate jester. The azure-haired jester panted, glaring at Alexa through one eye, as half of his face burnt off. He could only smile, smiling his ever so wicked smile, and slowly sways back and forth, walking towards Alexa and clawing at the walls, pushing her against it, as he leaned in so closely towards her ear and whispers in a deep, growling voice. "Do you believe in fairy tales now, my dear?" Alexa gasped as the creature mimicked the voice of her mother. All this time, her mother, whom she loved so dearly, was long dead. The burnt, undistinguished bodies that hung in the closet she hid in were indeed that of her parents. Alexa nodded no, and screamed, trying to push the jester of blue and purple off her, as she feels a sharp pain on her chest, and she screams out unholy shrieks of horror. Alexa slapped and feels the jester's claw at her skin, ripping it to shreds. Dion Harris's vision starts to fade as she sees herself fall to the ground and only sees a blurry image of the jester gazing back down at her, grinning, laughing, and mocking her. The jester picked up the music box from under the rubble and turned the key and put the box down, leaving it open for Alexa to listen to, the distorted tune chiming in the air. The fool could only laugh and walk away out into the white blanketed fields of snow and ice, only to gaze back at Alexa, saying his final words. "Now you will share the curse. Remember, child, always share." The Cobat jester was soon joined hand in hand with his sister, as both were finally free to spread their games and lessons on, sharing. The next day, all that remained from the fire was the remains of a once grand kingdom, brought down overnight. Upon the walls of the grand clock tower, written in blood of many decapitated victims, were two names, both with smiley faces drawn next to the names.